Now let's understand the history of front-end libraries, right? Like we need to understand what were the different purposes of the different libraries when React.js came into the market. Like the better understanding you have about the history, and you'll understand the motivation behind React.js, right? So there were plenty of libraries in JavaScript ecosystem like HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and browser engines and SAS, LESS, Angular, whatnot, right? So NPM. So there is a big ecosystem which was driving the community for a lot of years, and suddenly the libraries or frameworks come into picture. It's not an overnight process, right? It's like there was a complete journey of front end, which one was better in doing one thing and one was better in doing other thing. But what was the core principles of each of these? Because React.js is not simple React.js. It is combination of HTML, CSS, JavaScript, all of these, because all of the concepts which they have brought when they were released, they have been leveraged well with the React.js, right? So let's understand the core principles or what are the main foundations of any front-end development, right? So first it was always HTML. So when first HTML was released, the main purpose of it is to give a skeleton to the browser, right? So HTML is a templating language. It's a simple templating language. Like the way you write it, it's just painted or rendered onto the browser window, and it gives the actual layout and the structure to the web page. So to give a basic structure to any web page, even today, anybody, any library, any framework, they still have to use the HTML. Maybe they are writing on top of something. Maybe they are writing HTML in some other type, but the core concepts of HTML are going to remain the same, right? Similarly, the CSS. So HTML alone gives a small structure or like the look and feel where the part should be placed. But to give a visual appearance, to increase the visual appealing, what you need, CSS is the one. Like CSS is another simple template scripting language which increases the beauty of the web page, because otherwise you cannot see the web page when you simply write it in HTML, right? Then again, JavaScript, it actually gives life to the website. Like let's say you build a website and web pages, it looks very good static, but you cannot do anything on it. Nobody is allowing you to do. Without JavaScript, you just simply have to look at it and enjoy. That's it. It's never going to react to you. So JavaScript is the actual programming language which gives the motion or the credibility to react to the user's action. Otherwise, HTML and CSS are nothing. They are like a dumb languages, in my opinion, right? So if you look here, it's very good visual illustration of what exactly the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So HTML, if you analogize with this, a human body, right? HTML stands on the skeleton part, like how much height do you have to be, and how much length of your limbs, and what are the placement, and what is your body structure should look like. Everything is determined by the HTML. But who wants to see a skeleton roaming on the road, right? Nobody wants to see it. But again, so CSS comes into the picture then. Oh, okay, I cannot make a web page to go like this because nobody is interested to see the head skeleton of the web page, right? So it adds style, it beautifies, it puts on makeup to the HTML what we have written. So the first step is always HTML. Then we added dress, we added makeup, we added nice hairstyle, and not by whatnot. You can add anything. Even today, CSS is the only thing which gives the beauty. Or maybe you are using Bootstrap, maybe you are using Material UI, maybe you are using other UI libraries, but CSS is the one thing which adds style and increases the visual quality of the web page. Not only just style, guys, it is also responsible for responsive design. So what is responsive design? Responsive design is nothing but, let's say I'm opening on a laptop, somebody is opening on a mobile, and somebody is opening on a tablet, right? The width of each of these devices vary a lot, because obviously the viewport available to the web page, it cannot be the same, right? See, I mean, when I see on a tablet, if I see the same size of the web page, and it comes onto the tablet, obviously the last part gets skipped. So you need to arrange yourself the content on the web page. So who is going to do that? Based on the availability of the size, the width of the screen. CSS is the one, guys. CSS is responsible for responsive design is what we call. So based on the different width of the web devices, right? Like let's say I'll show you. You click on any website and click on the inspect, and after that you click this button which is displaying as one tablet and a mobile. You click on this. Now if you see here, see there are different famous phones which are available in the market. So when a web designer or is doing the CSS code, he himself validates like how is my website is going to look in a pixel 2 phone. So see, now everything has changed. Now how was it before? So it was a very large one. Now suddenly you change the device, like I am putting on iPhone 6 and iPhone X, it's a little bigger device, and then I have iPad. So iPad has little more width. If you see here, the width and height are getting changed. So this is now the 100%. So this is how my website is going to look. And if I put it on a responsive mode, so see, I'm just changing the device, and look at how things are getting changed. Look at the search bar. And now the search bar has changed. The version has disappeared because on a smaller device, nobody is interested to look at the version. And see, the more I compress, it is still readable. See, now the take tutorial has gone down. So this is all CSS, guys. CSS gives responsive feel. So based on the viewport, I mean based on the width, if you look at the top, the width is getting changed continuously. I'm increasing it, right? And JavaScript is the one which gives functionality, or I would say the life. So back then, companies used to design some static web pages and just like showing address, we are here, we are located here, and we do the so and so things. But after that, websites have increased, or the functionalities which people do on any website has increased drastically. Now see, look at Amazon, Flipkart, or any other thing. You do a lot of activities on the website. Now they are not just a static things. You get to perform a lot of things. You need to secure the data. You need to store some data in the browser engine. All of these functionalities come from JavaScript. So JavaScript is the main thing. It's the programming language. And if you ask me in other terms, HTML and CSS are dumb languages. It means you cannot implement any of your logic like if-else statement, loops. You cannot do that because HTML and CSS are not meant to that. They just, you write some HTML, and even if the worst part about HTML and CSS is that even if you write some bad code in them, nobody is going to give you an errors in HTML and CSS. Whereas JavaScript, it qualifies as a programming language. It goes into compilation phase, goes into an interpretation phase. So it throws error. So if you perform anything wrong, JavaScript throws. But HTML and CSS, nobody ever knows. You write a bad HTML code, it will still render. So HTML and CSS, dumb languages. JavaScript is the intelligent language. And right now, JavaScript has become so popular that you can even use it on the backend. Now, learn one language you can use everywhere. That's how powerful JavaScript has become, like using the Node.js and Express.js, right? So this is the history of front-end libraries, guys. Like then the most important thing comes up in the ecosystem of JavaScript. I would say jQuery or Ajax are the revolutionary libraries or technologies which have disrupted the front-end development a lot. Because jQuery is one library which manipulates the DOM, or which manipulates the elements on the web page very easily. So if you want to manipulate, if you want to bring one element from left to right dynamically, because JavaScript now added some life, user clicks on something, so something will happen, right? On that basis, jQuery was the first thing to bring, or it's the revolutionary library which has given wide options to a lot of people to build frameworks like Angular or libraries like ReactJS, right? And Ajax is the first one to implement the asynchronous functionality of JavaScript. Asynchronous means I'm doing something on my browser, and in the background, I can still do some other actions. Like I'm clicking on a browser and I can make another thing happening behind the scenes. Right now, I'm viewing the web page. I can still do other thing behind the scenes, asynchronous. So I can do this, and I can also ask someone else to do something for me. Ajax is the first one which came in the JavaScript ecosystem using the event loop of JavaScript, which with which you can make API calls to the backend server and get the data and load it on the browser and display it. So it also started helping us communicate with the backend server so that you can make API calls, right? And then the first and the foremost framework which has appeared in the market, and it has been a huge success, AngularJS. Again, guys, there is a difference between AngularJS and Angular 2. So Google released this AngularJS framework, and it was widely used by many people. But the principles of AngularJS were not up to the mark. So there were again open options for many other open source developers like Facebook or Google. Google itself thought that okay, AngularJS cannot be the complete future because the principles on which AngularJS was built was not very pretty reusable or pretty scalable. That gave a lot of scope for other things. But I would really say that AngularJS is the one which motivated everybody to build a framework or libraries like ReactJS or Angular right now in the market. Then comes the ReactJS. So as I said earlier, Facebook was evolving at a large scale in back those days, and they had to deal with very complex actions of the user on the browser, like like Facebook, how complex it is. Now you can play games, you can do anything, right? So handling such complex things, they wanted to build a library which is capable of doing that, and one of the software engineer in the Facebook built that library and named it as React. After a few days, they made it open source so that everybody can use it. That's what you can expect from a tech giant. So as a competition to React, we got Angular version 2, but I would believe that due to this, I mean, when Google already released a framework like AngularJS and breaking all of those changes, Google itself realized that, okay, AngularJS is no match to React. Now I have to match it with the React in terms of performance, in terms of development speed, whatnot. So Google has developed this Angular framework. Angular 2.0 is what they call when they released it, but it was evolved to different versions. Right now we are in Angular 11. But what the main disadvantage was when Google stopped support for AngularJS and both React and Angular were in the market, people lost some kind of hope on the Google. But what happens if Google releases a library which is or framework which is again completely not matched to its previous one, right? Obviously, it creates some chaos in the market. So that's the reason where many people converted. So anyhow, I have to move from AngularJS to some other new library because these guys have come up with a new solution. So people have chosen more, or they were inclined towards React, I would say, and pretty much me also took the same decision in the time. But I was never disappointed with React. The way React handles, how simple the React is. The best part of React is the learning curve is pretty small. I mean, if you concentrate in React, you can grasp all the concepts in 1 week. And the best advantage of React is that you can build native applications with the same concepts of React, like Android, iOS, and web. It's not possible in Angular. You need to use another framework, or you cannot build native applications. Simply, I would say you can only build hybrid applications. So this is what the history of front-end libraries is, guys. It's not just a 1 day or 1 month or 1 year process. Technologies have evolved. Like there were plenty other technologies. These are the major ones. Even today, in React, you use all of these, the concepts of Ajax, the concept of Jquery, the concept, I mean, it is pretty much in JavaScript, though I would not say it's a concept of JavaScript. But yeah, in React, we use a new standard called as JSX. It's a syntactic extension to JavaScript. You can use HTML and CSS in the programming language of JavaScript. So yes, when it's not a one overnight success of React, it's a process, and even React has evolved a lot from right now we are in React version 18. We are about to release React version 18 and the time of this video being recorded, right? So React hooks have come into the market, many things. React has also evolved a lot, right? So this is what you need to know about the history of your front-end libraries, guys. Do let me know if you have any questions.